Prateek, how are you?
Doing very well, sir. How are you? How is everything?
Fine. Enjoying the COVID. No other choice.
It's terrible. I mean, Europe is going for a second round of intense lockdown. I don't know what's happening to the.
But here in Delhi, Gurgaon, it appears as if nothing has happened. The life is moving in the usual earlier, way. If you go to the market, people are bustling. Everything is moving as if nothing has happened in the world.
But that is precisely leading to the second major lockdown. I was chatting with
that
somebody
will happen.
in London today, and they are saying that it is so serious right now in London. They have become much bigger than the
previous one, the earlier one. Yeah.
So they have 1 month lockdown now in England.
Yeah.
So Spain has up to May.
Yes.
1. Spain has
That's
gone
right.
to May 02.
Whole of Europe, I think.
Italy also.
Yes.
Italy, where the earlier impact was the biggest in Italy.
Right.
But now you see the thing, the Delhi Gurgaon cases are also increasing. Okay, and yesterday the High Court has also mentioned like this thing that Delhi is going to the COVID capital of the country. But
Delhi is COVID capital.
Yeah, I don't find any way either the people have learned from the past, or the government is also so serious.
It appears both things, and second is, the testing is still very, 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 very low. In fact, cases could be maybe 1 lakh per day in Delhi alone, but then nobody is going for testing. Nobody is testing.
Election is one of the dimensions for which they have gone little low on testing. Actually,
it is quite possible.
Yes,
possible.
Because high number has its own swing effect on the.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened to Biden and Trump?
Biden is coming, sir. Whether Trump likes or not, a good maverick will go. Thank God.
I was reading in the Google News that even the media is blocking all the.
Media is blocked since morning.
Made by Trump.
His speeches are being blocked now.
Yeah, being blocked. They are not liking his.
Because Biden needs only one state, and Trump, in order to win, has to need all the 4 states. So which may not be possible. Yeah, which may not be possible. It's a matter of time. Whatever argument he is putting, whatever Supreme Court he is going, but I think he may not come back.
But all Supreme Court judges are in his favor. So
yeah.
So can we quickly go through the proceedings, please? Because we are left with hardly any time.
Yeah.
Mr. Mehta, over to you.
So, good evening, everyone, and just as a quick check in terms of how we are going to be running this, there will be the welcome addresses which will happen. Immediately after that, Dr. Chaudhary will hand it over to me. I will do a 10-minute quick discussion around what are some of the latest trends which we are seeing in the space of learning. We've been doing a little bit of research post the start of the lockdown, and some very interesting insights have come out. There are some very interesting insights which have come out, so we're going to share those. After that, I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Chaudhary. Dr. Chaudhary will introduce my respected panel members. I will, Mr. Sharma, if I may request you to go on mute. There is a lot of feedback, traffic noise coming on your line, sir. After that, we're going to ask the panelists to provide a very quick overview about what's their point of view regarding some of the changes which have happened to the learning organization during the COVID period. And each panelist will spend about 2 to 3 minutes to provide their perspective. That will be the main question. Now, given that Mr. Chaturvedi has a limited amount of time, we are going to kick it off with Mr. Chaturvedi's perspective on that one, and then I'll be handing it over to the various other panelists. Once that general question has been answered, we will ask certain specific questions. So, Dharam, Alok, Mr. Chaturvedi, all of you know which questions I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to stick to those. We will then do a third round of questions if time permits, which is primarily a set of additional questions which I have prepared. in the meantime, I will also, during this period of time, I will also request the audience members as well as everyone else to, key in some of the questions which, they might also like to ask the panelists. And what I'll do is I'll play the role of an MC and quickly shuffle it across to the various panel members. My only request and submission to you is that given this is a Friday evening, we are approaching the close of the working week, and I may just request all of my panel members to keep their answers crisp and to the point, so that all of you get sufficient time to speak and we are able to hear everyone's perspective and thoughts. Right. So this is how we're going to run it. We will do this up till 7:45. At 7:45 p.m. I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Chaudhary. And Dr. Chaudhary will then provide us with the concluding address for the session today. Dr. Chaudhary, does that work for you? Mr. Pandey, is that all right with you as well, sir?
We had the question answer round extending till about 7:55 as per the initial plan. And that is followed by the vote of thanks by Mr. Dhananjay Singh.
Certainly. Okay. So after at 7:55, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Dhananjay Singh.
Right.
Noted. All right. And if at any point in time, Mr. Pandey, Mr. Chaturvedi, Mr. Dubey, if you'd like to chime in with your thoughts or observations, please don't hesitate to do so. Mr. Dubey, you have a frontline view of the financial services industry, so it would be wonderful to get your perspective as well. So this is a Friday evening after all. I would like to keep this as an interactive session because I'm coming between you and your whiskey and your evening snack. So let's try and make it as entertaining and as engaging as possible on that note. Yes. So
Dr. Chaudhary,
Dr. Balian want to say something.
Just one point that I presume that there would be a lot of recommendations, a lot of best practices which are proven to be very beneficial. Are we able to then, or have you mechanism to collate all of them to be having that these are the kind of learnings and best practices or that have really helped the organizations to really overcome the problems of COVID and they could still perform or have really given them a fillip? Are we trying to collate also some, Prateek, you think some kind of a summary of recommendations or something?
So I'm going to be sharing a set of observations more than recommendations, Mr. Balian, at the start of at the start of the session. So that's the plan which I had in mind.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
But if I may add, Dr. Ashok.
Yes, please.
The whole thing will be recorded, and as usual, they'll be transcribed and shared with all the members. And we carry forward all these research as a research, basically, and then compile it and add up some treatise from our side and then share it with all the members.
Sure, good.
So you will get all this, yeah, sure.
Great.
All right, we are about 3 minutes into, before kicking off the event. Just as a small request, may I request to those people who are not going to be speaking to keep themselves on mute, just to avoid any feedback online. We don't want to miss out on the conversation, so it would be extremely helpful if we can have people on mute at that time. Thank you so much.
Dr. Mansi, we have around 62 people joined. It's another 3 minutes. So I hope by 6:30, 6:35, we'll have major people joining.
So we will begin, maybe we can give a 2 minutes waiting time. The earlier we begin, the better, because Mr. Vinod Chaturvedi has to leave around 7:15, 7:20. So
Because now number is increasing, I can see it has become 67 now.
Right.
Yeah, let's start on time because those who are already there, in respect of their time, let's start sharp at 6:30.
Yeah, I think we start at 6:30.
Yes.
Manushi, one request
Yes, sir.
that 7:20 I will be putting it to mute, but I will keep it online because my second presentation is there, and again 7:45 I can rejoin. So there will be a gap of around 25 minutes from
Great,
7:20 to 7:45, 40,
That-
whatever.
That'll
Yeah.
be really great to have you
Yeah,
back again once you are done with your presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, doctor.
Good evening, Nalin.
Good evening, sir. Padi this side.
Hello, how are you? How are you?
Namaskar. Namaskar. Thank you, sir.
Padi. Oh. Shyama Charan Padi.
Sir, thank you.
Yeah, good. Good to see you here. I'm glad you joined in. Glad. You are in Bhubaneswar or somewhere else?
Sir, Bhubaneswar, sir. Right now in Bhubaneswar, sir.
Oh.
Sir, good evening to
Bhubaneswar is
all of
getting overcrowded by retired HR guys, you know.
sir.
Very good. Very good to see you.
Sir, thank you. So when are you coming to Bhubaneswar next?
Ask the pandemic managers, I think COVID managers. I'm prepared. And so will be Dr. Chaturvedi. He will advise me to go to meet you and all the guys there. There's a
Thank you.
huge bank of retired HR guys, you know, treasure I will in Bhubaneswar.
Sir.
Hmm.
So once you come, please tell us so we will be there.
Certainly. I'll come to you.
Sir,
Catch
that will
up.
be my
Yeah.
great pleasure, sir. Honor.
Yeah, Shyama Charan.
Good
Good.
evening, Verma sir, Chari sir, and Rao sir. GP Rao sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Namaskar.
Namaskar, Chari sir.
Namaskar, sir.
Thanks for joining in.
Oh,
Sure, bhai, sir, GP Rao.
Hi, GP. How are you?
Namaskar.
Namaste.
अरे क्या बात है GP garu. Am I visible? I don't know. Yeah, I am.
Yeah, fully visible.
No, I muted myself and went out of.
GP Garu, welcome.
Welcome. अभी उधर मैं सौम्य से मिल के आ रहा हूँ.
हाँ, मैं समझ पा रहा हूँ. हमारे दो अलग-अलग कमरों में चल रहे सेशंस. दीपक जी, वेलकम.
बड़े लोग जमा कर लिए हैं तुमने.
नमस्कार सुना साहब. दीपक बरारा here.
Hi Deepak.
कैसे हैं सर?
Hi Deepak. Good.
Hi GP.
Good. Hey, how are you? How are you, Chaturvedi साहब? कैसे?
नमस्ते.
धर्म तुम्हारा तबीयत ठीक ना? Good to see you. On करो तुम phone.
Now quite better, sir. Thanks for your wishes.
नहीं.
ये मलेशिया की तरह आपके घर आने वाले हैं सीधे.
Dr. Verma, namaskar. Good evening. Welcome in. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, great.
Dr. Mansi, I think we are already at 6:32.
Yes. We are at 6:32.
We should move.
And we'll begin.
We are shutting off.
I will request all of you to please mute yourselves.
Yes.
And I will also mute myself once I'm done. Sinha sir, I didn't ask you to switch off the video. Okay. So good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to all of you to this roundtable on making HR effective in the pandemic world, presented by BIMTech in association with the National HRD Network and our knowledge partner, Deloitte. I'm Dr. Manushi Chaudhary, Professor and Head OBHR area at BIMTech, and I am your anchor for this evening. Over the last 9 years, we have organized 34 roundtables on different themes across various metros in India, where we met in the wonderful ambience of huge banquet halls of 5-star hotels. Our discussions provided not just food for thought and avenues for worthwhile interaction, but were also followed by a lavish spread of exquisite dishes. Of course, we received tremendous response from the HR fraternity in all these places. But this year, things have been different. Our mobility has been severely restricted due to the pandemic, And social distancing is the new normal to which all of us have become accustomed to. The COVID-19 pandemic might have restricted our movement, but it has not dampened our spirits at all. We have adroitly shifted to this digital platform, and the silver lining is that one can join in and attend from anywhere. So we are more in terms of numbers. So today we bring you fresh perspectives on the strategies for learning and development to meet the training needs in the changing times post-COVID-19, where we aim to share insights from our experienced panelists. I would now like to request Dr. H. Chaturvedi, Director, BIMTech, to deliver the welcome address. Now, with a master's degree in commerce and doctorate in business management from Agra University, Dr. Chaturvedi has more than 40 years of experience in teaching, research, and administration. As a former director with the AICTE New Delhi, he has been associated with the formulation of policies, planning, regulation, and control of management education, as well as other disciplines under technical education. Dr. Chaturvedi is a founder member and the alternate president of Education Promotion Society for India, a national platform for eminent educationists, education service providers, and edu entrepreneurs. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Barsi. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a matter of great pleasure in this HR roundtable presented by BIMTech in association with National HRD Network and Deloitte. We have amidst us some of the leading thought leaders who have been actively involved in nurturing, engaging, and leading talent. Their views in today's HR roundtable will be extremely relevant since they represent a wide spectrum of leadership in diverse areas. On behalf of BIMTech and our partners, NHRDN and Deloitte, I have great pleasure in welcoming the eminent panelists in this 35th HR Roundtable and all those stalwarts of the industry who are part of today's deliberations. Our speakers for the day in alphabetical order include Mr. Alok Shiopurkar, Executive Vice President and Head HR, SDFC Asset Management Company Limited, Mr. Dharm Rakshit, Senior General Manager, HR, Hero Motor Corp Limited, Mr. Prateek Mehta, Partner, Human Capital Advisory Practice, Deloitte Consulting, Mr. Sanjay Kumar, CHRO, Apar Industries Limited, and Mr. Vinod Chaturvedi, CHRO, Mineral Resources and Mining, Head Novel Ferro Alloys Business, Group Head Employees Relations, Aditya Birla Group. They are known in the industry for their dedicated practice. A hearty welcome to each one of them. Friends, with the rapid changes in technologies, learning and development has transformed tremendously. The roles and responsibilities of employees have also changed enormously due to increased use of artificial intelligence and the arrival of fourth industrial revolution. Therefore, the employees must be trained to learn, unlearn, and relearn to stay relevant and remain competitive globally. In 2020, a lot has happened, and still we have 2 months' time. But nothing perhaps has made as significant an impact on the global population as the COVID-19 pandemic. Our lives, families, and organizations have been disrupted. The economy has seen the biggest drop since 1920s. The present pandemic has not only brought many challenges for organizations, but it has also provided a great opportunity to transform. There is always an opportunity in an adversity. Social distancing has become the norm in many parts of the world, impacting the way that companies operate. As training and development professionals tried to adapt, there was a need to reinvent the way in which courses were designed and delivered, and the way that instructors interacted with participants. L&D professionals had to become proficient with remote meeting and training platforms. They had to learn to deal with situations where technology would not cooperate. They had to focus on incorporating more interaction by way of question and answer sessions, engaging videos, polls, and breakout sessions to stay connected with participants. Virtual training programs had to be direct and to the point to engage learners and keep their attention. Most of the companies have gone through new programs focused on working from home, staying healthy, and dealing with high levels of anxiety and stress. Some companies have converted their onboarding program into COVID-19 response library over the weekend. Several others have added video and documents into their response program. The gig workers, who are generally freshers at the bottom of the pyramid, need extensive training to match new work requirements. HR cell have to reorient their learning and development program appropriately to meet this challenge. Organizations that utilize digital learning platforms transitioned easily to virtual learning. Initially, organizations tried to create a substitute for classroom learning on virtual platforms. Once this was achieved, organizations also tried to reinforce engagement and make productive use of spare time through online courses and webinars. Josh Bersin Academy reports that there has been an increase in online learning in most organizations. Companies have rapidly deployed work-at-home programs, well-being and mental health programs to build positive thinking and alignment. As Josh Bersin has emphatically stated, learning and development is one of the heroes of this crisis. CHROs and CLOs are facing so many challenges right now. They are managing daily operations during unprecedented disruption while also thinking about long-term adaptation. We have certain doubts and questions. What type of shift could COVID-19 create in the learning and development space for training professionals as well as learners? What leadership principles can they employ in order to keep people engaged and successfully steer their organizations through this crisis? What are some easy, inexpensive techniques HR and L&D leaders can put to use today to strengthen their response to COVID-19? Dear panelists, I look forward to know the views of all of you and also from the participants on these pertinent issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. COVID-19 is changing the way people learn and work across the world. As organizations have shifted to remote working to sustain learning during the pandemic, they have adapted to newer learning tools. As the world copes with this crisis, the L&D function across companies is adapting to lead with innovative digital solutions to engage a remote workforce and influence their working. The need to reskill and upskill workforce is accelerated. With the size of teams shrinking as a result of financial difficulty for organizations, a culture of project-based collaborative working will become more common and a new culture of continual training and learning will be reinforced. Now let me introduce you to Mr. Prateek Mehta, Partner Human Capital Advisory Practice, Deloitte Consulting, and our moderator for today. Mr. Mehta works with senior leaders to drive business performance through interventions in the areas of leadership development, learning solutions, and talent transformation. He also leads Deloitte's learning solutions practice for the India market and has delivered multiple challenging assignments across 14 countries in industries such as financial services, automobile and auto components, infrastructure, and heavy engineering. With a bachelor's in engineering from Mumbai University and MSc in International Employment Relations from London School of Economics, he is also part qualified chartered accountant, ICAS. Pleasure to have you with us today, and over to you, Mr. Mehta.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Chaudhary, and thank you so much for that, Mr. Chaturvedi. I have Mr. Chaturvedi spoke about some extremely interesting insights, and I would say to some extent he stole a little bit of my thunder today evening, where I was going to share some insights, but I think Mr. Chaturvedi did that. So, thank you for that, sir. But but on a more serious note, when COVID-19 hit us back in March, and rather in February, March, one of the biggest functions which got disrupted was our function, HR. And within HR, multiple departments, including the learning and development department, had to take a really hard look at how can they very quickly reorient and remodel themselves in terms of delivering learning in a completely new way. Up till now, if you think about it, a large part of learning has always been delivered vis-a-vis the traditional classroom classroom approach. But the pandemic has forced physical distancing upon us. I would still like to believe that socially all of us are connected. We have participants today from Bhubaneswar to Bombay to Thailand as well. So I feel we are socially connected, but physically distant. And because of this physical distance, the traditional concept of the classroom is no longer valid. And what we seek to answer through today's panel discussion is really three big questions. One of them is, what are some of the trends which we are seeing in the industry when it comes to changes in the way learning and development happens going forward? Second, what are our business leaders asking of us? How are they asking the learning function to really pivot itself? And the third topic which we will also cover is, what are some of the actions which we as leaders within our fraternity need to take in order to really pivot learning and development within our organization. Now, before I jump into some of the insights out here, I thought I'll share a little personal story about a client which I'm working with since the last 18 months. This is a fairly large oil and gas major. It's a Fortune 500 company, and since February of 2019, Deloitte has been working closely with them to essentially help them articulate some of the skills of the future, as well as to build a very large custom repository of digital learning content. It covers more than 500 to 600 hours of content across a range of topics. Now, we've been doing this work over the last 18 months, and when in March the country went into a lockdown, one concern which the organization had was that, are my employees going to end up being non-productive? Will they end up sitting at home and not meaningfully utilizing their time? Surprising to them as well as to everyone else, in that in the 6-month period which has followed since then, this organization with approximately 20,000 white-collar employees has completed 6 lakh e-learning courses in that period of time. 6 lakh e-learning courses roughly translates into approximately 3 lakh learning hours, if you assume 30 minutes per course, which is a phenomenal achievement by an organization. But more importantly, it also indicates a very sharp trend towards the employees wanting to rapidly upskill themselves. They do not wish to use this as downtime, but rather they've been utilizing this time to significantly skill up over a fresh set of skills which they did not have earlier. Now, is this data point only true of this one organization which I speak about, or is it true of a large number of employees across the country? So let me share a little data with you around that. When we did a research earlier this year, we found that there were some very interesting insights in the post-COVID era. We found that nearly all e-learning websites reported a significant jump in the number of users. On an average, we saw a 400% jump in the number of users which had pivoted towards virtual learning. You had platforms such as Coursera, edX, Great Learning, and so on and so forth, which have really registered a significant improvement in the number of people who have actually joined them, right? We've also seen that nearly 72% of all professionals, Indian professionals, have now started to prefer a more e-learning oriented and a more digital learning oriented way of skilling themselves up vis-a-vis the traditional approach. They've not only found this to be a lot more safer in the current environment, but they also find it to be a lot more targeted as well as a lot more crisper. The other interesting insight which we saw was that nearly 60% of all the managers, or rather Indian working professionals, they actually want to spend an increasing amount of time upskilling themselves. And they are using online learning platforms and online content to essentially drive this, to essentially fulfill their learning appetite. These numbers are startling. At the start of the COVID period, nobody anticipated that there would be such a swift pivot towards digital learning, that there would be such an exponential increase towards people wanting to skill themselves up. But this is indeed the reality. Now, at one end of the spectrum, while we are seeing this, we've also been doing research on an annual basis through our human capital trends report to essentially see that is this data just a spike because of COVID, or is this something which we have been seeing regularly over a period of time? And even here, the results have been fairly interesting. Learning is clearly a top priority for the CXOs. We found that 90% of all the survey respondents said that they consider reskilling to be a critical business lever for them within the next 12 to 18 months. We also saw that 50% plus of survey respondents saying that what they are looking to hire going forward is not just a set of people with skills which are relevant for today, but they want people who are great learners and people who have a very high degree of learning agility. Another 50% of them said that while they believe that their workforce is skilled well right now, they feel that those skills are going to either become irrelevant or going to get depleted within the next few years. Essentially saying that the half-life of a skill is now approximately 2 to 2.5 years. And finally, the big insight which came out was that while a lot of us have been saying it is the responsibility of an employee to skill themselves up, nearly 73% of employees who we surveyed said that we believe it is the responsibility of the organization to provide us with the tools and capabilities so that we can raise our skill level. Now, these are very, very interesting insights. Obviously, when you have numbers of this nature, we need to understand who the stakeholders in this game are, right? And you really have two different types of stakeholders. At the one end of the spectrum, you will have your employee, and at the other end of the spectrum, you have the employer who has to make significant investments in learning. So let's try and understand what is the expectation of each of these types of stakeholders. If you look at your employee today, there have been some fundamental shifts. Your employee today is a millennial or a zennial, right? And that consists a large part of your workforce. And this is an employee which was born in the time of Netflix and YouTube. Their attention spans are highly depleted. In fact, a recent study showed that the human attention span is reducing to lesser than that of a goldfish, right? So, which is startling. So you have individuals who are highly distracted. They are overwhelmed with work, and when they want to consume learning, they are no longer interested in consuming learning in its most traditional form and fashion. They want learning to be self-directed, and that essentially means they want learning to be delivered to them. Similarly, Netflix or Amazon Prime delivers content to us, and they want to be able to learn at their own pace. They want learning to be collaborative in nature, so that not only are they able to learn on the go anytime, anywhere, but they should also be able to socialize and share learning with each other, right? They also want learning to be on demand. So if let's say someone like me wants to learn about cloud computing, I should have the ability to access learning on that anytime I want to, right? So they want it to be very much on demand. And finally, they want it just in time, which means that they want the relevant learning to be provided to them at a point when they actually need it, and where they don't have to wait for that course to start, let's say 3 months later. Now, these are very demanding expectations of our learners today. And on the other side of the table, you also have your business heads and your leaders. Your leaders are requested or required to make significant investments. And if we are asking them to make these sort of investments, they too have certain expectations. The one big expectation which they have is that they want learning to be relevant always. So they want to make sure that the learning organization is ensuring that the learning is always up to date, fully aligned to the business strategy, and deals with providing the skills which are most relevant for the organization to essentially execute its business promise. The second big thing which business leaders are asking today is that they want learning to be closely linked to careers. Learning should enable people to grow in their careers. It should not be a by the way. And the third area which they want to primarily focus on is that they want to make sure that learning is hyper contextualized. Which essentially means that business leaders recognize that their employee base has stakeholders or learners who are different, and each learner has a different learning preference. So, for example, let's say Mr. Sanjay Kumar, prefer to watch a video, whereas I may prefer to read an article, and Mr. Sinha may prefer to, let's say, listen to audiobook, and they want each different persona of the learner to be catered to effectively. Similarly, they have many other such expectations as well, and therefore it becomes very important that both the expectations of the learner as well as that of the management are closely aligned to one another. Finally, I would like to say that from a long-term perspective, what we see is that there is a clarion and a clear call towards digital learning taking a center stage, where we shift away from our 100% or a 90% classroom-based approach to, let's say, a 70 or 80% digital-led approach towards learning. Now, to achieve such a vision doesn't mean that we only need to produce e-learning modules or we need to curate content. It's going to require some fundamental changes in the way our learning departments are structured. For one, there is going to have to be a very clear and a sharp focus towards organization and governance. We need to make sure that while learning is delivered in a digital manner, there is also a very strong control mechanism which is put into place so that the relevant content and quality of learning is eventually filtered through. The second part is we need to make sure that the key enablers, such as the people and the technology, which is required to support this, digital delivery of learning, is made available. The third important part is going to be an orchestrated approach to essentially monitoring the entire learning consumption, and this is going to happen through effective data management, a strong use of processes, and having a very strong content management process. And finally, but most importantly, is the need to ensure that we create a culture of learning as well. And that is the fourth and the most important pillar. On that note, what I would like to now do is invite our panelists to also join into this conversation. And before I do that, I'm going to hand over back to Dr. Chaudhary to do a very quick introduction of our panelists, and then we can start our panel discussion. Dr. Chaudhary, over to you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for that very amazing and insightful presentation. I will again request everybody here to please mute yourself. Thank you so much. I'll now like to introduce the audience to all our eminent panelists for this session in alphabetical order. We have with us Mr. Alok Shiapurkar, Executive Vice President and Head HR, HDFC Asset Management Company Limited. Earlier, Mr. Shiapurkar has been associated with organizations like TISCO, Grasim, Crompton Greaves, Cadbury, and AIG. He presently serves as the Vice President, National HRD Network, Chairman, Apex Advisory Committee and Member Governing Council of SNDT University, Mumbai, and is on the governing boards of many prestigious organizations. He has also served as member Regional Chapter Development Committee of Financial Planning Standards, Board of India. Having studied commerce, law, and management, Mr. Shoparkar is a recipient of many awards like Rashtriya Samman Award, IES Award for Creative HR Strategies, GNI MS's HR Professional of the Year, and ICFA's Global Thought Leadership Award, to name a few. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Our next panelist is Mr. Dharm Rakshit, Senior GM HR, Hero MotoCorp Limited. Mr. Rakshit is an alumnus of XISS Ranchi, Wharton School of Business USA, and Ericsson Coaching International Canada. He is an HR leader with diverse industry experience from auto, FMCG, engineering, and construction. He has significant hands-on experience on global exposure to all facets of HR. He has also worked in Malaysia and Bangladesh and has supported the HR processes for APAC, Africa, and Latin American countries. With his career spanning more than 2 decades, he has worked in companies like Mondelez, Coca-Cola, Godrej Industries, L&T Construction, Tata Steel, and the Aditya Birla Group. He is a profound professional with extensive experience in HR strategy, change management, employee relations transformation, employee engagement, leadership development, etc. Glad to have you with us today, sir. I will now introduce you to our next panelist, Mr. Sanjay Kumar, CHRO, APAR Industries Limited. Mr. Kumar is responsible for the organizational strategic plan of the design and execution of the company, as well as business unit strategies through the development and implementation of HR strategies and solutions that support short and long-term business objectives. An alumnus of IIM Calcutta, he has figured among the most influential HR leaders in India in 2017, 100 HR innovators in 2018, and 101 top HR minds in 2019. He was presented with the Sustainable HR Leaders Citation in 2020 by the World HRD Congress, besides many other accolades earlier. Prior to APAR, he worked with Fino Payments Bank, EXL India, Europe and the Philippines, Reliance Communications, Hero Group, Bharti Airtel, HCL Pero Systems, and the Ispat Group. A warm welcome to you, sir. Last but not the least, we are fortunate to have with us Mr. Vinod Chaturvedi, who is currently Chief Human Resource Officer, Mineral Resources and Mining Business, SBU Head, Noble Ferroalloys Business, and has worked as Head Group Employee Relations for the Aditya Birla Group. Mr. Chaturvedi has more than 31 years of HR experience, clubbed with expertise in running a business, P&L responsibility as SBU Head, and driving business and people strategy and development. He is a seasoned HR professional, having worked for manufacturing and service sectors at corporate as well as at plant levels, handling strategic, tactical, and operational HR roles. He worked mainly in cement, fiber, yarn, steel, mining, and telecom industries. He handled assignments in change management, organizational redesign, cultural integration, IR, public relations, and legal portfolios. He has immensely contributed for building organizational culture, commitment, competency, and capability. He is known for his ability to transform business environment through rightful HR interventions and his ability to infuse excitement and ownership through motivational training. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be an extremely captivating evening with this power-packed panel. I now hand over the session to the moderator, Mr. Prateek Mehta, for further discussions.
Thank you for that, Dr. Chaudhary. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and thank you for your time and attention. It is 7 p.m. on a Friday evening, so I do hope that many of you have poured your whiskey and are going to enjoy this conversation. My first question is going to be to Dr. Chaturvedi. Sir, it's been it's an absolute privilege to have you today. You wear a dual hat. You essentially wear the hat of a business head, but you also wear the hat of a CHRO. And we would like to hear what is your perspective in terms of how has learning really changed in these last 6 to 7 months during the COVID period. How has the business expectation of learning transitioned, and what have been some of the biggest impacts on the learning organization during this period of time? Mr. Chaturvedi, over to you, sir.
Good evening, all of you. First of all, I'm not a doctorate. Actually, Dr. Chaturvedi is Dr. H. Chaturvedi, very respected. So I'm sorry. Let me tell you, as a CHRO also, and as business head also, this time, COVID times have changed our life, the way we work. You spoke about virtual learning, span of attention, all these facts you have so beautifully presented. Let me tell you from a manufacturing perspective, as you said, in learning, virtual learning, what we experienced in the brick and mortar industry, that visiting a plant and the site has been very important. Now, and we being in Aditya Birla Group, it's a 70% manufacturing and 30% services sector. Two things in learning have emerged greatly. One is augmented reality technology and virtual reality technology. Let me explain you how it has impacted in learning and development. Augmented reality is that you are sitting in a room and connected to a plant, and the plant layout you can go through on a real-time basis. You are seeing that this is a kiln, this is a manufacturing raw material area, this is the finished good area, and you can see that, and you can learn as well through a text which is available. That is augmented reality learning through the technology. Now, virtual reality, how it is, VR technology, how it is impacting. You are sitting in a room and a simulated environment gets created. If you are a business head and your plant head is working there in the plant, virtually that plant head is talking to you as if you are there in the plant. And you are taking all kinds of inputs on a real-time basis with your direct reportee. Or your boss is standing there and you are speaking on the data from the corporate office. So that kind of change, digital change, was unheard of in a brick and mortar industry. Okay, in services sector, we all know that yes, these things happen, but in manufacturing, it has really changed, number one. Number two, today, hunger for data of management, it has increased manifold. If we don't speak by data, I think we will be nowhere in the coming times, because on a real-time basis, everything is available to the management, to you, and all the decisions are being interpreted on that. Now, the question is, not taking much of time, what on a people front it has impacted? On a people front, digital empathy is very important. Why it is very important? If my boss calls up at 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, okay, Vinod, are you there? Can we get connected on Teams? Can we discuss this? And at that time, I am completing my dinner with my family. I think that is overdoing something. And that digital empathy must come among the management team, among the bosses. And yes, that is there. But yes, if the business requirements are there, this digital empathy takes a backseat, because as we grow in life, we are expected to perform 24/7. So Pratik, this has clearly changed. I would say that the challenge is that if we don't, adaptability and acceptance is the key. If we don't adopt to the system, if we don't accept it, then it is going to be a disaster for anybody. Second thing, creating an enabling infrastructure. Suppose there are companies who speak very good on digital platform, but infrastructure, you are not giving it a nice laptop to the person, and he is always striving and facing a problem. And it is an spend from the company. So creating an ecosystem, creating an infrastructure, that is very important. That is on a people front, I am telling. Skill to acquire is the new norm of the skill. Skill we should have, that how we can acquire the skill. So that is one. Learning on a what we say, acquire mobile anytime, anywhere, that kind of norm is going to be. Employees to remain vigilant about the changing needs of the environment and the skills. Every time, I must say, I'll give Aditya Birla Group example, and I will say that day the pandemic started, the stress levels of the people went up. What will happen? Let me tell you, we are best employers in the country and in the world. How we combated that stress level? We tried to connect, we got connected the great leaders of the world, and the Harvard courses as chairman series we launched. And every week there were some or the other, some behavioral courses on emotional quotient, etc., that happened. So I think that has played well. And now it has become a new norm that all kinds of training programs, as you said, that e-learning programs are so much that it goes on. It has become a new norm. We have launched too many courses, and now we are making it mandatory that you have to learn that. I'll give a pause here, not to take much of time. So this is the reality of the manufacturing industry, which I tried to connect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Chaturvedi. I think extremely insightful. I personally loved your point on digital empathy. I couldn't agree more with it in this particular day and time, since I too have to get on conference calls at the oddest of hours. Thank you for sharing that perspective. Dharamji, let me come to you, sir.
Yeah.
Given your very unique perspective, given the fact that you're part of the corporation which manufactures the largest number of two-wheeler motorcycles in the world, tell us, how has learning changed within the last 6 to 7 months for your organization? What have you seen as some of the big shifts which have happened? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pratik. I think Pratik and the Binod has made my job much easier. So thank you to both. I will just tell you this thing. I start a journey. We were the first organizations who took the global shutdown. So around and then after the government of India decided to have to have a lockdown. So we started in fact on the 21st of the night we took this decision to have a lockdown to globally lockdown to all the factories and that kind of a thing. Then after next day we had the session with all the HR leaders came together, and then how we are going to keep our employee engaged during this period of time. Because that point of time the stress level was quite high. There was a lot of the fear in the mind of everyone. At the same time, there are a lot of the apprehension also. And if you keep the employee not engaged, all the stress, apprehension, fear, everything will go increasing. Okay. So the discussion happened, and we thought like this, think, okay, are we going to engage only one section of the people or every section of the people? That was another question which came to us. Largely, I think the L&D functions, which when we talk about the white collar population, we don't touch the blue collar population also. And third important segment was not in a blue collar, that other set of the people who were the bottom of the pyramid, that they were contingent labor. Those also matters for us. Similarly, we also realize this, but think this is not only about the employee or the extended employee. This is about the family members also. Okay, because when this entire apprehension, the fear, everything is going, it is impacting the mind of everyone, not only the employee. So how we are going to create that kind of the ecosystem where everybody feels safe, everybody feels we think a company is taking care of us. At the same time, we are also going to enhance their skill and competency. With that very framework, we started our journey. And what we did this thing, prior to this thing, we have the learning platform with the Skillsoft Percipio. We have also the tie-up with the LinkedIn, Udemy, and other platform also. We thought this thing, okay, let's utilize and leverage this very digital platform. So initially, what we did this thing, we mandated certain courses to our employees, but we wanted to make it a fun learning. So that was another part when I come to later on. So what the challenges we faced like this thing, although we are talking about the digital learning, do we have that kind of infra available? And if that infra is available, it is available for everyone, or it is a section of the people, it is available only for a section of the people. And we realize this thing only for the, largely it is available for the white collar. So we started doing leveraging the mobile technology also. We moved our LMS courses on the go and the mobile technology. Send the link and the people start going through this thing. And we found that there was a tremendous kind of the engagement happened through this learning platforms. I am happy to share this thing. More than the 2 lakh courses has been completed by our employee on the Persevere platform. Besides this thing, the employees also covered a lot of the certification program on the LinkedIn, Udemy, and other platforms also. Besides this thing, we also had the 5,033 courses on our technical aspect, which is very much in-house developed kind of things. And after the 6 months of time, if I look back and see this thing, how much we have been able to build up the competency and the capability within the organization, that is humongous. So what we realize is the thing that while you are doing this thing, are you going to become the victim of the circumstance, or looking as an opportunity? Okay. Today, most of the time I found this thing previously, when you see this thing, the employees, when the leisure time is there, the employees are doing something different kind of thing. But today they are always engaged to enhance their capabilities. So this was a one side kind of a thing. So at the same time, what we also did was thing, we like what Vinod was mentioning, we also tied up with the various kind of the institutions, say from the Brahma Kumari, to organize the program on the stress, how we are going to distress. And this program was open for all the employees, family also, and extended family also. You can just share the entire link, and we actually leverage the Google Meet that point of time. We also develop our own in-house training program to how to actually face this pandemic. What kind of precautions are required, because we were cognizant of that very fact that after some period of time we have to start our factories, and unless until we are not going to give that kind of confidence to our employee and their family members that the workplace is more safer, then it will create a lot of the problem at the workplace. So we developed those kind of program. We engage the entire family members, and what Vinod was mentioning about through the virtual reality, we also showed how your new normal, your workplace look like. So when we started from the 4th of May, and I really was quite happy. Nobody told this thing, I don't want to come back. That kind of the confidence we have been able to build up. And when the people came back, okay, by the time a lot of the processes had changed, but through this, our internal technical training modules, the people were ready. Another set of the interesting kind of a thing we have never thought of, because during that period of time, we thought of, let us go ahead with our commitments. We have given the commitments to a lot of the management training, GET, new recruits. Okay, so we thought of, we will abide with our all commitments, and none of the recruitment will be turned down. But how we are going to engage with them, how we are going to induct. So we experimented with the virtual induction programs also. In the virtual induction program, it was also like how do we are going to simulate, and the people see their workplace. Okay, so we created that kind of the videos also, where you can go and you can see this thing, how the workplace is looking like. And another thing, interesting part of time, because that gives us an opportunity to this digital platform, the virtual platform, to connect back with your employees. During this very period of time, interestingly, more than the 35 town halls were done by our chairman, and very interacted with employees, the workman, and the contingent workforce also. So at every level, the leadership was displayed. Every level, we were able to build up that kind of the competency and the capability. And today, that the results are very visible, that in the month of October, we surpassed all the previous records. We became the highest producers. We became the highest dispatcher. We became the highest seller of the two-wheelers also. Okay, so I will just take a pause at this very point of time. And in the later round, I will just try to build up on this thing. Thank you.
Dharamji, thank you so much for that. I think I think congratulations are due to you and your company. 2 lakh course completions during that period of time is a phenomenal achievement. So, congratulations from all of us to you. Also, as you mentioned, October has turned out to be a bumper month for the corporation. So, congratulations once again for that. You, I think, do the entire industry proud by achieving numbers like this. Please do pass on our best wishes to your colleagues. Alok, I'm going to come to you now. Financial service has really seen a very interesting time during this entire COVID-19 period. We had loan moratoriums. We had a significant uptick in the number of digital transformations people took on. Mr. Puri also retired during this period of time. We've seen we have essentially seen a tectonic shift within the industry during this period of time. What has been the role of learning for your organization? How have you been able to really leverage your learning function in order to keep your employees engaged during this period? Over to you, Alok.
Thank you very much. Truly overwhelmed by participating in this event today, and there are veterans around, so I will be certainly a little cautious in speaking every word. However, one thing I must share, because a little helicopter view as we discussed yesterday. So what is happening to the economy? Because we are all slave of economy finally, whether we are in government jobs, private corporations, educational institutions. So little bit background to the audience, because the otherwise seniors are always there. That China is now thinking of stopping its manufacturing facilities and focusing on internal economy. That means what India has been doing for last maybe 20 odd years, China is going to replicate that model. That means India is now going to be probably the manufacturing hub, supply chain alternative, and of course, service in terms of IT, ITES, while Indian government still wants to be a tourism hub as well. Now, these things are driven by government through 3 key initiatives. One is Make in India, second is Atmanirbhar Bharat, and third is ease of doing business. Now, L&D professional must keep all these things in mind. While these things are in the offing and government is trying to take the efforts, businesses are participating, there is another kind of resolution being passed. Like government of Haryana has now passed a resolution, the 75% local people will be employed. It's a mandatory now even for private sector. Now, what L&D is doing, is it overdays? Because last 8-9 months, roughly 60 to 70 programs have been uploaded in the minds of a work employee. Now, those upload, when will that get downloaded? Has those kind of town halls and communications have done overdoes and more confused employee? Has it set in the digital fatigue along combined with COVID fatigue? We all have to find out the answers of this. And L&D professional will also have to mindful and ask couple of right questions. That can organization today work with 25% of non-availability? I'm not talking absenteeism or attrition, non-availability for various reasons, health reason or attrition or any other reason, loss of productivity and so on and so forth. How is it digital working arrangements are making and impacting the productivity and performance? What is the impact of this on culture? And will organization be able to deliver the same level and exceed the expectation? So these are some of the questions, and I will maybe address as we go forward many more when next round comes. So to my knowledge, and I am thinking and I am acting on it, one is to declutter the offering. Don't overcrowd, give some space. And that I as a professional believe is the biggest service I can do, to give more space to people to truly reflect and bounce back in the given scenario, because setting of environment is different from manufacturing, services, consulting, hotels. Right now, the biggest worry is, will I get salary and I'm already out of job. Manufacturing, they will be little smiling because pent-up demand has given up. BFSI was largely doing, and they have very smoothly, swiftly transitioned from a manual transition to digital transition without even noticing it. So every kind of a sector has its own setting. But one thing is certain, that it is now productivity and engagement are the key driver, and therefore classical model of appraisal and feedback will no longer work in productivity and engagement scenario. Because by the time you do the feedback after year end or half year end, it's too late. So what has to be done is learning professional has to embed engagement also in its offering for better alignment, calibration, and creating the capacity and capability what is required 3 to 5 years from now. Otherwise, we will have broken talent supply chain, and next economic crisis organizations will experience because of the lack of talent, which we already organizations are grappling with. We are not getting any longer good civil engineers who can lay good tar road. Okay. Another thing is geopolitical challenges are also triggering a new kind of migration, where countries will prefer Indian employees as a worker, and that will create further demand of Indian talent in global market. So I will take a pause here and we will share some of the practices in the next round. Thank you, Prateek, for giving me opportunity.
Alok, thank you so much. I think there were some really fantastic points that you put in out here. The one which I personally liked quite a bit was decluttering the number of offerings which are out there. I think in this COVID-19 period, we've had a plethora of offerings being bombarded by various functions to an employee. इतना सब training कर लो, ये सब wellness programs कर लो, by the way इतने सारे meetings भी attend कर लो, and if you have whatever little sleeping time left, see if you can do something in that as well. So
combined with zinc doses and homeopathy doses and vitamin doses and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
So everywhere overdose is the phenomena. We have decided to travel other way around.
Absolutely, and I think that's a wonderful initiative. I think focus, prioritization, decluttering is the mantra for this particular period in time. So thank you for sharing that insight, Alok. Sanjay, I would also love to hear your perspectives on this. You've got 25 to 30 years of experience across a varied set of industries. This is a unique period in our history. You've given your breadth of experience, given all that you've seen. How do you think learning has changed during this period of time? What have been some of the biggest trends which you have noticed and observed? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So, virtual is the new real. Virtual is let me begin by saying that. So that's the first thing which has happened. Digital, what we had been talking about in the last 4 to 5 years, in fact, the last decade, it's happened in 2 months. In the month of April and May, the corporate world digitized far more than what it had digitized in a decade prior to that, and what all had been talked about. So I think that's one. Despite the challenges that it has brought in, I think it has ushered in a lot of opportunities for all of us. It saved a lot of commuting time for metros like Mumbai and Delhi NCR, surely. That time has been spent for more strategic work. I think people have migrated from some of their time. They're able to do some more strategic work than the transactional work they were doing. Some of that time is certainly getting into investments, into learning, because careers shifts and other things are going to happen more frequently now. What we have done at APAR is we started working on our brand reinvention, and this was a little before the pandemic. The finding of this century has been that brand is not on what are the values. We have prioritized the values. We have defined them. We have written down the behaviors and the metric for each value. And there are a lot of training programs, synchronization of the employees across that. So that is one of the things we have done at APAR. And also we have focused a lot on leadership and rebound training. Now the change that I have seen over the years, starting from the classroom training to reading of the books and a presentation style training, it is more on a storytelling mode now. A lot more has moved there. Visual content is far more, and it will increase more, be it videos, be it the pictures as content. Interactive learning is the new trend, bite-sized learning. So these are the things we have worked here and across the country, different industries, and across the globe. These are the trends which have flexibility in learning as you go, wherever you are. So these are curated learning programs. So these are some of the things which I think have changed and are changing. Behavioral training, which was looked at as secondary to functional and technical training, I think that has acquired a prime position today. People have understood that this is actually more important, if not equally, in fact, much more important. And the importance of learning is being understood very much now. More than lifelong learning, a lot of certifications. This is the new trend, which is their new midterm courses. The biggest change has come among the seniors. Earlier, the seniors would feel that, it's like you clear the civil services, similarly, you go to an IIM or to XLRI, and then you are done for your life. But I think the seniors are reinventing themselves. Technology, they are embracing very well, very fast, and the new methods. So that's the other change, which certainly is there. And I think what has recently started is the focus on mental wellness, overall wellness, and the mental health part, because of course, COVID has added to that, despite its benefits. It's in terms of learning, it has also caused a lot of fatigue, which has been talked about, and long hours, span of attention, monotony. So I think these are some of the things, changes which have really happened. In terms of LMS, I think it is far more interactive today, with AI started to play a little bit of a role there, but there's a long way to go. I think these are some of the changes I discerned over the years. Thank you.
Sanjay, thank you for that. I think you might have made a quote out here. Virtual is the new real. I think you might be quoted for that in weeks and months to come. I do believe virtual has become the new real. I also particularly enjoyed this point which you mentioned about the mindset shift in the senior management. Originally, it was like passing one exam 20 years back, to now recognizing the fact that the skills of the yesteryears are now no longer going to be relevant. We need to really upskill ourselves and reimagine ourselves as we move forward. So thank you for that perspective. Now that we've sort of finished out the overview part of it, let me ask let me ask some of you a few pointed questions. And Dharam, let me start with you out here. As the largest two-wheeler manufacturer in the world, you would also have a very significant blue collar employee base. Many of your employees who are white collar have access to these wonderful learning platforms. But what about the blue collar employees? In your organization, how have you been able to drive learning towards them during this period of time? How have you been able to keep them engaged? If you can share some thoughts and insights, because that is also one of the questions which we have received from our audience members.
So Pratik, is a wonderful question. I think some point I have touched upon when I was given the opportunity, because it is not only about the white collar. Learning is not limited only to the white collar, and largely when the manufacturing setup, when you had the largest section of the employee with a blue collar contingent labor also, because the auto sector, the contingent labor. Besides this thing, be also thought of that when we are building up that kind of the capabilities, do we have the supply chain partners? Do you have are they building that kind of capabilities or not? Because if they are there, they are not able to build up that kind of capability, they will not be able to provide the components, and we will not be able to manufacture. Okay. So immediately we have a very interesting kind of technical training learning kind of a system, which is we call the Gurukul. And largely long back, say before the pandemic, I have given him the one objective that how many this modules are moving to the mobile technology. So on the mobile technology, you can access it from where you are. Okay. So what we did is we think that when the went for this lockdown and the pandemic kind of things, we gave the access to our all employees, including our contract labor. Okay. And then after, but the question like when you give the that kind of the access, how the people are actually going to utilize this thing. So be worked on the fun part. We also have the some amount of the encouragement part. So we start giving, we have another system of providing the reward and recognition, which comes as a smiley kind of things, and a smiley can be converted into the certain rewards. So we extended that kind of things for our, even to our contingent labor workforce also. And that helped us, because if you see this thing, the post-COVID, when we started starting your manufacturing facility, rebooting your manufacturing facility, many of the manufacturing facility actually faced the problem of the laborers, because the laborers have migrated. So 2-3 things what we did is the thing, while we paid the full salary to those very employees, at the same time we kept them engaged through by enhancing their learning agility. So once we opened up, and then another thing what we realized, interesting kind of thing, because our supply chain partners have not been able to build up that kind of capability. And normally you see this thing, the people think about the legal framework, how much we are supposed to go to the contract level, what kind of the relationship we is to maintain, what kind of relationship we are going to maintain with our supply chain partner. So I told when the discussion happened, there is no legality involved, because the learning is not something is restrained by any of the law. So if we are upskilling the capability of anyone, nobody can stop us. No law can stop us. So extend those kind of things also. And at the same time, we also created the COVID awareness program. And you will be surprised those things. We covered the 30,000 people who were in the different supply chain partner spread across the country. Okay, we trained their family members also. We trained the employee also, and we developed around 200 trainers amongst them to take it forward. So it's a learning. I found the thing, the one good disruptions has actually provided us to leverage this technological platform and to reach to the last level of the person in the pyramid. Because normally you see this thing, those people are unattended, not come into the focus point. And let me just share one more story. When Sanjay was telling, and I was literally feeling this thing. During this COVID period of time, I also did my certification program in executive coaching. And the entire thing happened through the virtual learning. Okay. And none of the time I realized this thing that I am going to miss any of the input. Rather, I realized in the, say, hotel setup or something, if I have got the back table, I may not have that kind of attention of the trainer. But here I found the thing, the equal footing. I have the similar kind of attention from the trainer. Anybody, any point of time, I can go and stop in and tell the thing, sorry, I have not understood. Please rework upon me. Okay, that kind of the beauty of the kind of thing. Certainly, what the Binod has mentioned, that is a very important point. That is a digital empathy. We should not forget it. And so I think some of the audience members have also written that kind of the question. So this is about more about their own discipline, own work culture. So we should also keep the respect to the personal time of the persons. Okay, and we should not encroach unless until it is not very, very emergent, and unless crisis like situation has come. Don't disturb anyone, because since we are virtually connected, so any point of time you just pick up the phone and send a meeting invite. That's all.
Dharamji, I think wonderful responses to that, and it's so heartening to see that you've been able to extend this learning program to approximately 30,000 plus employees within your supply chain. Kudos to you for making that for making that initiative. Alok, my next question is both to you as well as Sanjay, because both of y'all are from such distinct distinct industries. How has learning budget been impacted during this period of time? We've seen a fair degree of benevolence across the board. Organizations have made a lot of investments in learnings, but on an overall basis, how has learning budget been impacted? And, what are your thoughts and projections in terms of, budgeting for the learning organization over the next, let's say, 12 months? Alok, why don't we start with you if you're okay with that?
See, as our theme is to make HR effective and also have the learning strategies in place, we have to see what is that learning driving. Okay. So today, if we look at either in manufacturing or service industry, of course, manufacturing was always ahead of service industry of multi-skilling. So let us look at somebody in a transformer industry who used to do one operation called tanking, where APAR is one of the key supplier for mineral oil, right? And then you move him as an elevation to core manufacturing, and the last is a winding manufacturing in a transformer factory, right? So one worker can do all the three operations, and then if he does it all well, then he will be sent to maintenance, which otherwise, if no breakdown, you have relaxed job, okay? Because generally transformer factory will not have boilers and other things. Similarly, you take a shirt manufacturing company, somebody who is doing collars for last 10, 15 years, doing so efficiently, and your wastage is very, very low and you cannot accept high wastage. But today when 30-40% workforce is not available, you have to make personal protective gears and equipments or the devices. You want somebody to do cross. So now you want the person not only to stitch collar, but other parts of the dress also. But now the wastage. So this is the cost of not training people in timely and manner and anticipating what is going ahead of you. So in a bank, if your cashier is not there, even branch manager can come and do that job, right? This is not when you COVID or any emergency hits you. This is the part of your HR and L&D strategy. And if you have this strategy in place, I think no CEO can really say no to make that investment.
Very well put. Very well put.
Similarly, the investment, this forms of one very clear part of your organization's culture also. The investment, somebody asked me in one webinar, so how are you, what are you doing to, change the culture? I said, we don't need to change culture. The culture will now pay the dividend what we did for last 20 years. I now don't have to convince my employee that you are safe, your job increment promotions are safe. That assurance has been given maybe in 1990 or 2005. So I think if you have clear agenda and a clear line of sight to show that initiatives are going to translate into business gains, that is your profit before tax minus wage, okay? Then you have clear check signed, and over a period of time, if there is a continuity, CEO will sign the check with blind eyes because he knows that there is going to be ROI. If it is just a cake pastry party and some coke and dance and song, probably those will be clipped. So over to Sanjay ji for his,
So beautifully, beautifully candid, and thank you for that, razor sharp insight on it, Alok. Really appreciate the candor. Sanjay, I think you have a tall order ahead of you. We look forward to your, razor sharp comments on this one now.
Sure. Thank you, Alok. Thank you, Prateek. So I think in our organization, to respond to your question, the ceiling on the training budget is no longer there. So right now it's just been taken off. So we are fortunate. And I think most of the companies are investing more and will invest more. Yes, they will be more selective maybe. The training need identification process may not be generic as much as it used to be. Probably it will be more geared towards the high potential employees who are being looked at for a higher growth progression in the future to become the leaders. So that's what I can visualize at this point of time. The second thing is that learning process itself has become much more reasonable economically. I mean, it's much more cheaper to say it straight away. So, now you look at a webinar and earlier just compare it what the training program would cost you. Today, everything is available at a much lesser cost. And that's a great opportunity, I would say. I mean, it's almost like you just can't compare for 350, 750. These are the kind of, and you get great people there. I have been a speaker in one of the forums where Connect HR forum, where in Chicago, I had to travel there, be there and speak. Now, all that is just readily available, and you have the best of the people from all the industries across the globe, anytime, anywhere. I mean, that's the fun of it. So I think one, it is easier because it is cheaper. Second, it is much easier because you can collect so many people from so many locations. We never thought it was possible, rather than getting people in a classroom. So across and there is no limit to the number of people. So I think learning process, the budgets will, despite the CEOs, as Alok rightly said, he'll sign the check, maybe cheaper also, despite having more of the content, a more number of training and interventions. Mentoring, we have started off, for example, one-on-one mentorings with our senior leaders. It's really gone on very well. And even external coaching, that's the other thing which has started far more. So I would feel that is my line of sight for it. Thank you.
Sanjay, I think it's very interesting perspective. Let me flip this question, and this is open to Dharam as well as you. Yes, absolutely. With virtual learning, you can now have an unlimited number of participants. But tell me honestly, hand on heart, do you see competency development happening with the same degree of efficacy as you would in a classroom session? Question number one. And part two of that question is, learning is also a lot about social interactions. You learn by hanging out over a cup of chai. You learn by having conversations in the canteen and so on. And right now, while all of us are on Zoom, we're also competing with our inbox and messages coming on Teams and Skype and whatever else, and so on. So, are we seeing, are we really seeing an uptick in consumption of learning, or are we genuinely seeing skill development grow through the medium of virtual learning? And maybe Dharam, if I could request you to start this time, and Sanjay, if you could follow it up with an answer. So Dharam, over to you.
I think Pratik, you have given us a very tricky question. So, but I will like to just tell this thing my own experiences, and that's why I mentioned when I did my executive coaching course. Okay, I have gone through myself through this very processes. And I realized this thing, the power of that very program was not lesser than any classroom program. Rather, it was more focused, more intense, because I knew this thing 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. I am engaged only for that very purpose. So there were no distractions. Okay. So I found that my personal experience, but it was more intense and learning was much and more faster. Only thing now, what you need to do this thing, you can't go by the very traditional meaning of the kind of thing. You need to, as a trainer, you need to really engage your people, really understand the needs of the people, because you are virtually, I'm seeing the so many faces. I can understand this thing, who are the people who is just struggling and who are just absorbing an entire kind of. I think as a trainer, you should also be knowing and cognizant of that very fact, because everyone is on the same platform. Particularly about when you are having the Percipio or that kind of the courses, you are right, because only I am learning, I am going and doing that kind of the courses. But the beauty of those very courses are also there at the end of the courses. You need to also answer a couple of the questions, and then after your certifications happens. So that is the inbuilt exercise that actually tells you how much you have absorbed, how much you have learned. Now, putting this thing into the practice, that's a really different kind of the thing, and where we need to actually be cognizant and we need to be cautious and see this thing, whether ROI has happened. Because many of the time you go and you learn the process, and then after you have the couple of the questions answered, and then after you are certified. So there actually the role of the HR comes, and particularly the business manager comes under whom this kind of things. Are they witnessing that kind of the changes or not? If they are not witnessing that kind of a changes, the HR actually need to have a linkage with the business manager and with that kind of the platform, and how we can revamp that kind of platform where this theory can be translated into the practice. That is
wonderful. Wonderful. Sanjay, how would you like to respond to that one?
So I would agree with Dharam and with a caveat. So, there is always a trade-off. Here, it is more reasonable. It is easier. You can do it more frequently. However, yes, the intensity may not be exactly like that, and the social needs and the interaction may be less. But there is a trade-off. It depends on how well it is, followed up, as Dharam was mentioning, by HR or by the reporting managers or the heads of departments. It depends on that and the employee. But the beauty is that now self-development, which was earlier we used to write down 20 years back, also 25 years back, self-development plans. Now that is far more, the onus has moved on to the employee and they are themselves owning it largely. So I think it is possible. There is a trade-off, but if the problems in measuring training effectiveness were there in the classroom brick and mortar model and here also. So I think whatever is there, certainly this provides more opportunity. Thank you.
Alok, I would also like to bring you in out here because we have some very interesting points of views both by Dharm and by Sanjay, but also on the chat it's actually quite interesting. So if you could share your perspective as well on this question.
So just one caveat that I am not against digital training. It's a tremendously serving the purpose. It's a lot of information is getting transmitted, lot of knowledge is getting transmitted. But to L&D professionals who are participating in this, I would like to just give a word of caution. You will not be able to create war-hardened army in shooting range. You need to send your soldiers in the field. Don't count on your certifications and declare that you have war-hardened army ready. So don't do that mistake. Otherwise, not only you will lose credibility, but function will also lose credibility, because unfortunate reality is many CEOs don't know how to use HR and L&D as a function to be critical levers of thriving business, especially in uncertain scenario. So therefore, to contribute best, we must be mindful of this fact that while for practice shooting range is important, but do focus on interventions which will get your army in a very, very competitive landscape ready for the battlefield. That's what I wanted to share.
Alok, thank you for that. I think if it's fair to paraphrase, e-learning is absolutely great when you want to build a knowledge, but if you want to sharpen your skill, you have to get on the job training. You really have to get your hands dirty out there. So thank you for that, Alok. Before I hand it back to Dr. Chaudhary, there is one last question which has come from Mr. Singh, and he has directed this to Dr. Chaturvedi, and the question is that he would like to know how is BIMTech changing during these very trying COVID times. What are some of the key shifts which we are seeing in terms of various L&D interventions which our institution is currently undertaking. So what are we at BIMTech doing differently? What are we going to be doing differently? If you could share your perspective on that, it would be extremely helpful. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Very briefly, I would like to submit that in the month of April, we had a great realization that whatever we could learn during last 20 years or so was not sufficient to meet the challenge of COVID-19. We were mostly teaching our students through face-to-face teaching learning. Our B school is a residential B school, and hardly few faculty members, they were experienced in online teaching. And we never required that we should shift towards online teaching because we were not offering any online course. But the COVID-19 has forced us to accelerate our endeavors in digitalization. So we have to do digitalization at every level of our working. Not only we have trained our faculty, our staff, even the housekeeping employees were given training about how to meet the health requirement while they are working or while they are at home. Secondly, health and well-being of employees as well as students has become a more important, a big issue, because earlier we were having skeleton facilities for faculty and staff and students inside the campus, which is located at Greater Noida. But now, very minutely, we have planned so that we can become a compliant higher education institution and meet the challenge of COVID infection. Thirdly, we have invested more on learning and development, and not only we have planned a series of training and development of all kinds of employees, but also we have given them freedom that they can also chart out their training plans for the future. And one major shift every higher education institution has made, that is shift towards 100% online teaching. So we have made a big leap towards 100% online teaching, and students, surprisingly, we were skeptic whether they will be happy, satisfied or not. But we have taken feedback from them, and we found them that in the current scenario, they are satisfied, they are not unhappy about the 100% online teaching. So we have shifted towards online teaching, online learning and digitalization in a big way. And this is a big learning for our institute, our faculty and staff. And it is a greater realization that every organization has to face big threats from pandemics, from disasters, from climate issues. And we have prepared a business continuity plan. So all these things we have never done, but now the situation has forced us to become resilient, lean, and more awakened to risk management. So this is the story of BIMTech for last 7-8 months.
Mr. Dr. Chaturvedi, thank you so much for sharing those insights. We are nearly at the top of the hour, so I'm going to hand it over back to Dr. Chaudhary. But before I step away, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you on behalf of Deloitte. It's been a wonderful experience for me personally to facilitate this session. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Vinod. Thank you, Alok. Thank you, Dharm. I think the big takeaway for me, as Dr. Chaturvedi just said, that learning has gotten a lot more resilient over this period of time. The learning organization has gotten a lot more resilient, and it has also gotten a lot more digital. So on that note, thank you so much for your time, everyone. Dr. Chaudhary, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mehta. And I would just like to add to what Dr. Chaturvedi said. Apart from the heavy investment in terms of IT infrastructure, having smart boards in all our classrooms and training all the faculty members for online teaching, we also cut down on the class size for better interaction. And all the resilience and empathy that we've been talking about, we've been practicing that in our classes also. We had our orientation program, again online, which was blessed by Dr. Santrupt Mishra, who addressed our new batch of about 400 plus students. And that was obviously followed by online classes. And the icing on the cake was that we've not given up on any of the events that we organized till last year. So all that figured in our annual academic calendar still figures there, only the platform has changed. So thank you to all the panelists for sharing all your experiences and giving us such a lovely, lively session here today. May I now request Mr. Dhananjay Singh, Director General, NHRDN, to please propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And at the outset, I must thank Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi, Director BIMTech, for leading this. I can see the Sutradhara of this for last 9 years. This is the 35th session. KK Sinha sir, now he has switched on his video. Thank you, sir, for leading 35th session. Means a lot. So a lot of people came together and they have shared their experiences in last 9 years. So our kudos, our gratitude to each one of them for being with us in last 9 years. I would also like to thank Akhilji, Dr. Chaudhary, Abhinav, Nalin, and everyone for doing this continuously for 9 years. And despite, as Dr. Chaudhary said, COVID in these tough situations, over 150 very senior participants, they joined us here. That's a big blessing to this work led by BIMTech and supported by NHRD and Deloitte over the years. I don't have words to thank Prateek. Thank you so much for moderating this with such seasoned leaders as panelists. And Dharam, Sanjay, Alok, they all are the kind of perspective which they have shared. A grateful thanks to each one of you, to the moderator and the panelists. And let's hear for the moderator and the panelists, please. What I'm very emotional to see blessings of such senior colleagues. In fact, we are grateful to each of the participants who are there with us. I can see Vivek Paranjpe ji, I can see Dr. G.P. Rao Saab, Deepak Bharara ji, Dr. Balyan sir. I can see Dr. T.V. Rao joining us here. So I don't have words to thank all of you, because your presence gives so much of energy, and that too on a Friday evening, that too in a very festive season, and when a lot of things are happening around in the office and at home also. So thank you so much for all of you for joining us here and encouraging us to organize more and more such initiatives which help the fraternity, which helps and create a process of co-learning. At the end, before we end this session for today, it's already 8 o'clock and we would like to end on time. I would like to say that festive seasons are ahead of us. Please take good care of each one of you, yourself. And also I will request that take care of people around you. Those who are not so blessed like all of us, who have all the facilities available in life. There are many around us whom we can support from our very, very small gestures, very, very small act of empathy. So let's do that. And Dr. T.V. Rao, you are there, sir. We would like to have a word of blessing from you, please, sir, before we close the session. Over to Dr. T.V. Rao before we close.
Oh, it's very wonderful. I was just reading a introduction to the compilation made by Professor Sinha. What a wonderful compilation. Now I'm happy to see the 36th one, right? And I'm so glad that I have been able to be present at least for a part of it. I had a conflicting engagement on happiness by one of the institutions on which board I am, and therefore I had to miss the first part. But I could sense quite a lot of interesting conversations last half an hour. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, Dr. Chaturvedi. Thanks a lot, Dr. KK Sinha. And thanks, Dhananjay. I think it's so wonderful. And such a great list of participants you have had. I look forward to playing what I have missed the first half an hour, 45 minutes of this. So I'll get in touch with you, Dhananjay. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Thanks for joining in, sir. Thanks for joining in. It really brought a lot of value and a lot of respect to our forum.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Namaskar, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Singh.
Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you
this
so
brings us
much.
to the end of this conclave. I am
Deeply
sure
thanks.
it has been a very insightful and enriching experience for all of us here. A big thank you to the audience for being so fantastic and raising so many questions for our esteemed panelists. And wish you all a very happy Diwali. Signing off now. Good night to you.
Thank you to all.
Good night,
Thank
Thank
you.
you and good
Happy
night.
Diwali to
Good
everyone.
night, everyone.
Lots of learning.
Have a happy
Happy
Diwali
Diwali
to all.
to all of you.
Happy Diwali. Happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks to all, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vinod.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So
everyone.
much, sir. Thank you, sir, for joining
Thank you,
us back
Dharam.
again.
Thank you, Dharam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.